How's it going, guys? My name is Graham, and welcome to my developer commentary on my old game from back in 2009, Pirate Launch. We'll talk a little bit about the history of the game, because it kind of has like a wild history. This game was stolen at one point, which is really ironic for a pirate-themed game when I really think about it. But as a young developer making one of their first projects, it was devastating. It's such a horrible story, and I've wanted to share it for a long time, but it also is just kind of like brings up some terrible memories. That was really messed up for like a young kid. So I would have started this game when I was 16, finished it when I was about 17, just looking at how the timing of everything matched up. It is all done in vector art, but the way it was assembled, I guess it was converted to like bitmap first. That was just easier for Robert. That was how he preferred to work with things. And so the quality kind of decreases when I have it stretched out like this, unfortunately. But you know, when people are playing it in their browser, it's only that big anyways, so you don't really notice. I had made like a couple really small projects before this. I pretty much always paired up with a programmer because I did not know how to do that. My super cool old online screen name of Goatman. This was actually sponsored by Armor Games eventually, which is really awesome because like I had one other sponsor previous to that, and it was very small potatoes. Armor Games is like a big deal. They're like the top. If not like one of the top, probably the top. When Armor came on as a sponsor, I did like a little twist on their usual logo there where instead of the swords, it was the sabers. I thought that was cool. We have our little guy scanning the horizon, finding an X marks the spot on a distant island. Oh, seems good. Like a crappy, actively deflating dinghy, a bunch of obstacles between him and there. But you know, the little idea going off in his head, maybe if you rocket yourself along in a totally different boat apparently, then, you know, you can maybe earn yourself that treasure in the distance. I guess first I can talk a little bit about what the game actually is. Tutorial here, you aim the cannon with your mouse, click and hold to charge the power, release to fire, and you have to keep yourself balanced as you splash across the water. There's a few different random obstacles and things. Different things affect you in different ways, and you can buy upgrades. This entire game was developed on this singular idea of, I love kitty cannon. But that game kind of like has a specific limit to it that like once you've played it a few times, it's just a matter of trying to go further with things. And you know, that has its own limit. I'd rather sink myself than lose more money to the shark. And I was like, what if you could upgrade things, invest further and progress and have actual visual ways in which things change. So you can buy a cannon and it increases your firepower. That when you go back, you have this new cool copper cannon that you can play with, which is something I probably wasn't like fully aware of at the time, but like I really now in games still to this day love visual upgrades. I just definitely have a preference for that. Oh, if you land a front flip, you get a little bit of extra cash there, so I was trying to really manage that. Better rotation. You start with pretty janky rotation. It's pretty hard to land a flip, but then once you've upgraded it even just once, it becomes so much easier. Come on, hit the bomb. Yeah, keep you going. Dang it. It's still fun. I still really enjoy the game for as simple as it is. Some of those are a little tough to hit. Bounce higher. It's probably worthwhile to land a flip, but it doesn't count until you hit the water again, actually, which is not working out well for me here. Back flip, front flip, it doesn't matter. They're both worth the same amount of points. Yeah, I still think it's like a pretty fun game. There's like a legit challenge to it to try and see how few days you can do it in. There's this cool tracker that shows how you're moving across the water and like your eventual end distance. Whew. Little rough around the edges. I used to be able to like expertly nail this game. Maybe I should stop trying to commit to the front flips. But I used to be able to finish the game on day one. Well, maybe not. Like, you have to get incredibly lucky for that. Maybe that's exaggerating. But I've definitely beaten it in like a week before, maybe a little under a week. I shouldn't say one day. I don't have any proof of that. I'm not 100% certain anymore. I just like it. It's fun. It's simple. How it first came to be, other than just like the concept, but when I actually started working on it is kind of interesting as well. gold appears more frequently when you invest in a pirate. Even though the initial pirate, the first one you play as with the little blue bandana, is my favorite design. I should have maybe made him the final, but I felt like he was the most attractive, flashy, cool looking one, so I wanted him to be the one in the front splash screen and everything. But have you guys ever seen those like 30-hour famines, like a school lock-in where anyone who signs up for it is supposed to fundraise and try to earn money for charity, and then your agreement is that you're not going to eat for 30 hours to, I don't know, give young teenagers the experience of famine. It's a pretty controlled environment and everything, but I just bought my first Wacom tablet. It's like $60 or something. I was excited to bust that in. I knew I was going to be in the school for 30 hours. And so in the evening, played games in the gym, and people brought like their Wiis in and stuff to play with, I think. And for a little while after we had done plenty of that, I snuck away to instead go and play on the school computers with my tablet. And I started drawing up these characters with the general idea in mind of what the game would eventually look like, what that would all entail. And yeah, pretty much a majority of the art got done in that one evening. Majority, maybe a loose term, but I drew quite a lot of it. Most of the ships, the pirate designs, most of it is pretty simplistic, you'll notice. It's not the most advanced art around. Looking back, it's almost shocking how simple most of the art is. It's there's really not a lot to it. I would have loved, for the sake of this video, to have accomplished this by day 14. That would have felt real good with like minimal upgrades and everything, but at the same time it's kind of nice because then I get to show all the different upgrades. 2,500 I think is the eventual distance that you need to achieve here. It's like a pretty long off goal actually. Whereas Kitty Cannon's just kind of like a fun tool to play around with, this one being more goal-oriented, hopefully would keep people playing, keep people coming back. If they weren't able to finish it in one setting, maybe they would come back and play, or if they did complete it, they would try and, like outdo themselves. So I felt like there was, like in my mind, some pretty appealing design aspects in that regard. And now I can start talking about the game actually being stolen, which really sucked and delayed the release. And because of that, this game actually came out after Learn to Fly. They were in development at the same time. It really stunk because a lot of people were like, you just stole this idea from them. And it's like, no, we independently came up with that idea at the same time. Creating an upgrade-based Kitty Cannon is not that original of a concept, and since then there's like plenty of other launcher games, but I'm pretty proud of being really early on the advent of the launcher genre beyond simple Kitty Cannon. Is it Kitten Cannon? It might be Kitten. I keep saying Kitty. Ooh, one other thing I can talk about here too is the music, the soundtrack, which I just love. The main menu theme was like a free track I found on Newgrounds and slipped into the game that the author allowed me to use. But for the main theme here, I couldn't find anything that I thought felt right, that really had that level of fun and piratiness and everything that I was looking for. And so I actually hired a musician, and that's where Hopeku came in. But they did such a fantastic job. They charged $100, which I had never actually invested real money into anything I had worked on before. That was really nerve-wracking because I was like, I might legitimately never make that back. And they did an incredible job. They handed this over in 24 hours or something. It's like a 2-minute loop, and on a regular basis to this day I get comments on the Newgrounds page and stuff of what is this song, where can I buy it, how do I listen to more of this, more please, because they did an incredible job. It's personally one of my favorite parts of the game, and one reason I think it was popular and successful. Eventually when this thing released, I had sold one other game before for $100, Kilbo 2. This one eventually got sponsored for I think 1,000, which was really great, of Armor. And then through ad revenue, because in every version other than the one on Armor, there are ads. in the front part of it. That's kind of the agreement a little bit, is that if someone's specifically sponsored to have your game on their site and have their logo in it, it'll be ad-free. And anywhere else, like the unofficial versions, all have Armor's logo as well as ads. I made a couple thousand more off the ads in this game. It got like 1 million plays and an 8.0 out of 10 on Armor. It was like really well received. It was like a legitimate success, which was awesome. But if anyone's curious about monetizing Flash games, selling those licenses, there used to be a website called Flash Game License, FGL, where you could basically put your game up for auction, and different potential sponsors would say like, yeah, I'll pay you $500 to have our logos in this game. All right, you got 72 hours to either accept that or not. We got our fully upgraded ship at this point. With the captain, he's my second favorite design. And then other sponsors, websites can see that and say, no, I think it's worth closer to 700. Oh, I think it's worth 1,000. And it's a back and forth. But you're putting your game out in front of these websites, right? You're sharing your game online in this private setting where you have to make an account and you got to verify that you're a real website and all these different things. I'm going to reset and try and get some more forward momentum going there. And so I, being a rookie to all that, did not site lock my game, which means it wasn't specifically set up in a way that only people on Flash Game License would have access to it. If you copied and pasted those source files from the web page and uploaded them on your website, it would exist and just be there. And so there were a few scam artists who would prowl that site looking for non-site locked versions of games that they could upload on their site, because then they would automatically be the first one to have that game. It would be an exclusive that they didn't even have to pay for. The Flash game world was full of a lot of scammers and a lot of deviance in that way, which is really unfortunate, and so many people, including myself, got taken advantage of in that way. So I was in the middle of auctioning off this game, getting it ready to sell, and someone stole the game. Next thing, it appeared on like 20 different websites. I was in the middle of trying to sell this thing to Armor Games, and I was like, no, this thing, all of a sudden, that was gonna earn like at least $1,000. I had that personal investment and everything, and I was just proud of it. And it was incomplete, you know? I still had ideas of extra things I wanted to add to the game. And all of a sudden, it just robbed, and it was so gutting. And I remember tracing it down, emailing every website I could. It's who knows which ones, who the original thief, the original pirate was. It's really unknowable. Many of them were compliant. Many of them took it down, not realizing that's what happened. And because of ways that I updated what became the eventual released game, it was really obvious who had the stolen version of it. And I feel like people kind of came to my aid a little bit and were like, hey, this is not an official look at this game. You should probably take it down and respect the creator, which I'm very thankful that people did that. And to this day, big middle finger to Mo Fun Zone. I think they eventually took it down, but probably less to do with them being good people and more just that website is a shell of what it once was. The guy who ran that website is a huge asshole. I'm not the first to say it. It was like a well-known thing at the time. People did not like working with this guy. Took advantage of a lot of people. I don't know. Maybe they eventually cleaned up their act, but they were kind of notorious. And they left up the stolen version, despite directly talking to me and me being like, hey man, this isn't the real version. I'd appreciate it if you took it down. It's the only way I could ever hope to make money off this. And they were just jerks. So I'm glad their website eventually failed. That small part of me is like a little bit glad about that. But eventual positive success story, what you're seeing is the final version of the game. Part of my motivation to revisit this now is I dug up and found the original version of the game before things got updated, and I want to show you a little bit of that. We got this final cutscene. Hopefully that kept you distracted. I've been stuck here for over 5 years now. Thanks for the ship. And then you got the captain sailing away. I thought that it was kind of a fun spin on things, that it takes you back as that original character and your ship is stolen by the captain, that you were kind of like working towards that all along. I don't know, just like a fun thing I came up with really late in development. adding a cutscene at the beginning and the end of the game was a suggestion from Armor Games. The sponsorship was falling through due to the theft, and that was one of many updates that were made to the game to make it a newly marketable thing. I think at one point they were offering $1,500, and they were like, hey, if you update a bunch of things and give us a new, fresh version with some add-ons and make it a more fully fledged game, we'll still offer you $1,000. Like, I'm updating the game and getting less for it because the game had already been shared around on the internet, which was pretty rough. The fact that they were willing to offer anything is so incredible. Daniel McNeely, the founder of Armor Games, the guy I was directly talking to, oh, what a saint. That guy is incredible. He sponsored a few other small projects of mine in the future. This was kind of the big one. But my God, that guy, Armor Games deserves all the success in the world, strictly on his back for what a good, easy guy he was to work with. And here's a look at the original unsponsored version, which I kind of like a lot of the art better. I drew it by hand on my tablet. It looks pretty rough, pretty janky, but I personally kind of like that. I think it looks a little bit more just done by hand. I don't know, a little more personal. I'm super inexperienced working in line art and was at the time and still am, and I feel like that shows. I just like this version better. These menu buttons and things are super plain. The yellow text on a gray background looks awful. It's terrible. Like, oh my God, what an eyesore. The eventual textured thing that looks more like a treasure map or whatever is cool, but I kind of wish that I had hand drawn that instead of using a texture, because the fact that I used a texture looked kind of rough. But you can see I redrew everything. All of this is hand drawn, and all of it eventually became line art. And that was me trying to salvage this game and try to still earn anything from it. So a lot of things were quick, simple swaps, but certain things I got hosed. I had to make certain things twice, which was so rough. Luckily, from a programming perspective, it's just a matter of swapping. But look, even this more than anything else, that main opening thing that you see in the main menu, and the fact that it doesn't automatically open the upgrade menu, that's just kind of like a short sight from myself and probably a suggestion from Dan McNeely. But the little character, he just looks better drawn. It's less circular. It's a little bit, of an odd shape, and I think that looks more unique and better. I'm bummed out a little bit that some of the original version of this art was lost for that reason, because I really fell in love with this character design and really sacrificed that vision in order to, still be able to make and sell the game. It's not a huge loss or anything. I think every one of the pirates looks better. Some things like the ships and stuff didn't change at all. You never see the wheel. The cannon always looks like a cannon. These might have always been line art regardless, so that didn't matter. But mostly these four guys, I think just looked better. And I've always been a little bit sad about that, and so in some small way I'm glad to be able to have the chance to share that now instead. But it's interesting that you can see even early on here, minus the sponsor logo, the game is fully playable, start to finish. It has that soundtrack and everything already. This was the version I was trying to sell, and the one that Armor was saying, hey, maybe move the way the upgrade menu shows up and things like that, and giving me genuine good advice and helping see it through. Yeah, that's the broad story of Pirate Launch. It all started back during that 30-hour famine. And a few days before that, I had a sketch in a notebook where I drew this guy when I first conceived of that. If I can find that, I'll include it in the video, because you can see the one-to-one of how I literally took that pen to paper and then pen to tablet and brought it to life here. I honestly don't think the logo's that good. I just found a pirate font and then a generic font. I could have put more effort into it, but it's functional. Pirate Launch isn't even that great of a title when I think about it, but at the same time, it's a little bit catchy. It kind of works. It's fine. I never came up with anything better, and so that's what stuck. And it's especially special to me in that way that this was so early on in that like renaissance of the launcher genre. And so I feel like I was really selling it. That yeah, this is like a thing now. Launcher games are the next big thing, and I'm here to stake out my place in that. So I feel like that's probably a little bit where my mind was at. Even just the idea of having any sort of aerial control was something that I was fascinated in, and you didn't really have in Kitty Cannon. Although that was probably taken a step further with like Toss the Turtle. You can actually control where you land, not just how you land. But having that imprecise landing is, I guess, still unique to my game, which is cool. Man, it's wild. Seeing games now like Toss the Turtle and everything that have come since, and the amount of detail that went into the art and the backgrounds and everything. If I would have made and attempted to sell this game now, or at any point after games like that came out, I would have got like $200 for it. The fact that I was early on the rise and the crest of the launcher genre is the only reason this game was ever worth anything. So there you have it. There's my story. A little bit disjointed of the production, the sponsorship, and the theft of this game, and how that was eventually salvaged, and why over a decade later I have a profound and deep love for Armor Games and will always promote and support literally anything they do. I'm really enjoying doing this like developer commentary series. It's cool to revisit these games, think back to where I was at the time making them, that little bit of history, sharing a little bit about myself and I don't know, my own development process, and just kind of personal. It's just fun. It's fun to do. I'll probably space them out a bit more now. I'll revisit other games. Maybe I'll do one video that covers like 3 games, or like old works in progress that never even made it to anywhere near a complete game. I have a lot that fall under that category. You know what? Hell, at the end of this video here, I'll show you a few bits and pieces of what I had been working on with Pirate Launch 2. There's some deep buried part of my brain that still tells me this is gonna happen someday. Someday, I'm gonna find the means that I'm gonna make it. I had it in my mind of it being a mobile game. I did so much of the art. I never found anyone to pair with. It never got off the ground. And then Toss the Turtle came out, and I was like, well, that did it better than I was ever gonna do. I actually created a Flashlight video, my series on all things Flash related, that talks about the sponsorship process and monetization options for Flash games. So if you want a better breakdown and a better behind the scenes view of how that worked back in the day, that would be a cool resource and worth checking out, because I kind of skim it in this video, but that really explains like how all that truly functioned. Thank you to patrons of the channel. I guess I'll have a link in the description if you guys want to play Pirate Launch for yourself. If you do, come back and let me know how many days you were able to tackle it in. There's like a handful of Let's Plays of it on YouTube, which has always been super cool to me, and I love seeing that. And it's fun seeing people challenge themselves and try to outdo themselves and each other, and that still warms my heart in its own particular way. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you guys for bearing with me with these like simpler videos while I space out other things. I hope you're enjoying them. I'll see you again soon.